should be good.
Okay.
New barcode.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Very cool. Thank you for that. All right. Well, let's start that all over again. We're good now? Great. So my name is Carl DeArmond. I'm a national presenter with Logos Bible Software. I make my home about halfway between Seattle and Canada. So any other Northwest guys here? No, of course not. No, we're always just kind of off doing our own thing and nobody's around. So what I hope to do over the next hour is to take what I normally do over the span of 3 hours and condense it into roughly an hour and 11 minutes is what we have left, I think. So I have 6 children. I'm used to being interrupted, so you're not going to bother me if I start doing something or showing something and you want to ask questions about it. Just feel free to shout it out. I'll stop. I'll gently rebuke you, but I'll still answer your question. So don't be afraid of that. How many of y'all in this room are the lead or senior or teaching pastor at your churches? How many of you are leading small groups, Bible studies, small groups coordinator? Okay. So it seems like pretty much everybody's got some kind of a teaching role. Then Logos is what you're looking for. I was a Logos user long before I was an employee of the company. So I first started using it in seminary. I was finishing up finishing. Don't judge me, I'm not quite done yet. But finishing a doctorate of ministry in biblical counseling. And it was a requirement for my seminary that we had to have Logos, which made me really excited because then it made it a whole lot easier to justify that expense to my wife to say, no, it's in the syllabus, I have to buy this. So I first started using it while I was a student, but I was also pastoring at the time. And it took me about 6 months before I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can use this to prepare sermons as well. And it got to the place where, because of Logos, it cut down my sermon prep time where I was getting it done in a day. Now, my context is different than a lot of others, and so contextualize it for where you're at. But for the last 10 years, my wife and I, we served with an organization that sends pastors into rural churches and rural communities throughout the U.S. and Canada. And so I spent Thursdays as my sermon writing day. And I would get it done in about 6 to 8 hours. And I communicated to my church family, like, look, Thursdays, those are the days I'm writing my sermons. So if you call me, email me, text me, I'm probably going to ignore you. But if you'll give me that day, that means the rest of the week I'm available for you. And so if you're in a pastoral role, whether a formal, designated role or just a shepherding role, I'm convinced because of experience that Logos helps you to increase your capacity and your ability to shepherd well, because now you're not freaking out on Saturday night going, my sermon's not done, my sermon's not done, my sermon's not done. Because what Logos does is it cuts out a lot of the time that you would normally spend trying to find what you're looking for and immediately gives you what you're looking for so you can get into your sermon writing. So that's my own personal testimony, also super helpful if you're pursuing further education, particularly if you're pursuing another seminary degree, because those of us in this room, we're those kinds of people, we like to have more degrees than thermometers. Then Logos becomes super helpful. That way there's a fun feature, the citation feature within Logos, where you can copy something from a Logos resource, paste it into a Word document, and it automatically cites it for you in any one of like 15 different citation styles that you get to pick. Because I have a love-hate relationship with Kate Turabian. That woman. So now I don't have to wonder, am I supposed to put 2 spaces after the colon while quoting a journal article? It's just done for me. That's, say, like 17 hours of my life right there just by not having to worry about that. So what I'm going to show you, this is what Logos 10 looks like. If you're using an older version, it might look a little bit different. Some of the features might look a little bit different. Don't panic. I'm just showing you Logos 10. Specifically, this is Logos 10. This is Diamond is what I'm showing you. So you have a pretty good idea as to what is on your screen. When we do these things, we try not to make too many assumptions about who knows what about Logos. So we'll start the very basic. This is what Logos looks like when you open it up. Now, everybody's is going to end up looking different because you're able to customize what your home page looks like. Your home page divided into 3 big sections. You have your menu over here. We're going to get to that in just a flash. This dashboard, you can add or remove cards. That's what each one of these little things are little cards. There's a plus sign up there. You can add a course, a devotional, prayer list, reading plan, so on and so forth. So I'm a bit of a church history nerd. And I also did not grow up in a liturgical church background. I just think it's really interesting, though. So I've found a way within Logos to combine the two. So I'm using this ancient Christian devotional that's tied to the lectionary year, because again, I just think it's interesting. I want to explore it a little bit longer. But each day, I'm reading something, in addition to the scriptures, I'm reading something from Ignatius, Tertullian, Chrysostom, Ambrose, different folks that are commenting on the readings that are set for each lectionary, each day in the lectionary. So there's that. I've added this. It's a saint of the day. It's a rotating thing, so every day I get introduced to a new saint. Some of them I've heard of before. This one, I'm not familiar. Anybody familiar with Anthony Mary Claret? Yeah, I didn't think so. Here you go, Archbishop, missionary, confessor of Isabella II of Spain. Okay. And then this one, I just keep up here just to show you where you can have quick access to things that you're already working on within Logos. So this is a workflow that I started, just a basic Bible study on Luke chapter 2. Logos now saves it as a card. So if I want to have quick access to what I was doing before, boom, it's right there in front of me. These little 3 dots, we call these shish kebab menus. You can click on the shish kebab menu, so if you want to remove a card, boom, it's gone away. You can always add other cards, and again, there's your menu. The second big section on there is the Explore section, and that's going to look different for everybody because you can customize that. You can use the Settings button, and you'll notice that I had to uncheck the pre-orders because I was getting a little trigger happy with things that were going to come out in Logos. And so my wife's like, why do we keep getting these charges from Logos? I'm like, well, there's new stuff coming out. She said, don't you work for them? I'm like, well, they don't give it to me for free. I still got to buy it. So as a way to love my wife well, I unchecked the pre-orders. But you can see the different sections that you could use or ignore. And essentially, this is just like a magazine of sorts. Pulling together different resources and excerpts from resources, introducing you to other tools. That's what all that is. I don't suggest you spend a whole lot of time there because it'll send you down a rabbit hole for quite a while. You might not end up doing what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. So what we're going to do is to make your home page disappear, you can click Home, and now it's gone. Now you're working from a blank slate. The first big thing that I want to show you is layouts. And Logos is saving us a lot of time and energy and a lot of heartache by creating these pre-made layouts. We'll open up this one. This is the Bible and commentary. And within Logos, you can set your preferred Bible translation. So my preferred translation is the ESV. If that's not yours, your favorite translation, I'm not trying to prove a point, I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just telling you that's what I do. And what the Bible and commentary layout does is, because I've assigned a Bible as my preferred Bible, and because I've assigned at least one single volume commentary as being my preferred commentary, Logos automatically brings the two up together. And you'll notice that in the corner of each tab, there's a little A. So these are tied to link set A, which means they're linked together. So as I'm scrolling through my Bible, I didn't mean to do that. As I'm scrolling through my Bible, I'm going to scroll through my Bible. Oh, sorry, I gotta remove that. Okay, let's try that. My commentary will keep up with me. Or vice versa, if I'm scrolling through my commentary, eventually my Bible will keep up with me, as long as the guy who wrote the commentary isn't super verbose. So it's a great way to very quickly get into doing Bible study and using a commentary with hardly any effort whatsoever. What did I do? I clicked layouts, and then I clicked on Bible and commentary. And you can see a variety of different layouts that are already there that are available for you. A Bible reading plan, Greek word study, Hebrew word study, topic study, and so on. Make use of layouts because they are quick ways for you to get into your study without having to redesign something every single time you want to do something. And I'll point this out to you. On the left-hand side, again, these are the pre-made ones. So the Bible and commentary, Bible journaling. But on the right-hand side, you'll notice there's a whole bevy of what Logos is calling snapshots. I love this, particularly as a dad of small children. What Logos is doing is that as you're doing work within Logos, it's keeping snapshots of your work. So if you get distracted because your 4-year-old son woke up way too early asking for his granola and oat milk, don't judge me, we live in the Pacific Northwest, that's how we eat now. And I end up closing my lid in order to serve my son's needs. I don't have to worry about crud. Now I have to start all over again because Logos has kept a snapshot of where I last was. And so I can go back and then I can decide if I want to save it or if I want to delete it. And you can tell it keeps a long list. I've gone through and deleted a bunch, but these are going back to October. There's some from May. So Logos is helping you to always know where you left off, so you never really lose anything. I like to remind people and just encourage you, you can't break Logos. There's enough fail-safes that are written into the coding where you can't break Logos, so have fun, go nuts. So make good use of the layouts. We'll close out all that for now. We'll go to Factbook. I love Factbook because it is the replacement for Google. Google is wonderful when you're looking for restaurants in the greater Oakville, Burlington area, trying to figure out where you're going to eat at 10 o'clock at night. By the way, not a whole lot of places open late at night in the surrounding area. Anybody else discover that the hard way last night? Yeah, that was some tough sledding. I think my options were like A&W and some dive bar, and I'm like, oh, well, okay. Maybe there's crackers at the hotel. The way Factbook works is you can put in any person, place, thing, concept, idea, and Factbook's going to do the work for you. It'll replace Google for searching for your biblical and theological information. There's a menu bar up here, and if you wanted to, you could scroll through and pick any kind of different themes. There's a church history theme. You can decide you want to search for a specific counseling theme. That's one way to do it. But the much swifter way is just to type in what you're looking for. So if we were to type in worship, now notice I've not hit enter, I've just typed in worship in the search box. And Logos is immediately coming up with different suggestions of maybe where I would want to go in my study on this word worship. Am I looking for a systematic theology? Am I looking for a noun, a concept? So there's fire worship. Am I looking for different worship psalms? Here's why we are pleading with you to use Factbook instead of Google. Number one, you're getting trusted resources. Number two, it's safer for you. Now, I'm sure the algorithm has changed, but a few months ago, one of my teammates decided to Google worship. The first entry as a Google result was an advertisement for, let's keep this evangelical, for an adult nighttime establishment. Did I keep that safe enough? So, if nothing else, just for your own sake of personal integrity, stop Googling things because Google will take you into weird places. But we'll go with this one here, Worship in the Life of the Church as a Systematic Theology. And there you go, within a second or less, Logos is immediately pulling together resources from my library that help me to understand worship in the life of the church. Now, this is from the Lexham Survey of Theology. Lexham is the publishing arm of Logos, so if you ever see that, that's a trusted resource. And to answer the trivia question, where does the word Lexham come from? It's an amalgamation of two words, lexicon and Bellingham. So Bellingham, Washington is where Logos is headquartered. So they mashed them together and they got Lexham. That's what that means. So if you're looking for some random city in England to say, oh, that's Lexham. Nope, doesn't exist. It's just a made-up word from Bellingham. So there you go. Within Logos, everything that's in blue is a clickable link. So you can now see that you are going to be able to very quickly go deeper into your research because Logos is already doing the work for you. Now, it's not doing the interpretation for you. It's not doing that. It's just pulling together the resources for you. Now, if you were to decide, hey, I'm going to study worship in the life of the church, how many different books would you have to pull off your shelf in order to be able to do that? And then what does your desk or dining room table look like? Whereas Logos is now giving it to you all right there on your screen. And if you are a multi-screen person, you can undock these tabs and then move them around onto different screens. So if you like, one of my teammates, he's got 3 screens going at any one time. I'm like off the charts OCD. That would drive me insane, so I can't do that. But if that's your thing, go for it. So we see in worship, human beings recognize God for his attributes and express this through adoration, praise, thanksgiving, service, and living holy lives. Worship constitutes the primary calling of humans. So each one of these words that's in blue, I can click on it, and it's going to open up a new fact book report on that particular word. What I don't want you to miss is we opened up worship in the life of the church. I clicked on the little blue word calling that opened this up. I didn't lose my place. There's these left and right arrows. I can click backwards to go back to where I was on worship in the life of the church, or tab forward to go back to calling. So make good use out of Factbook. You can put in a location. It helps if you type it correctly. Jerusalem. So, okay, we all want to look at Jerusalem as a city. And so now Logos is pulling together resources from my Bible that will help me to go deeper into my study on the city of Jerusalem. So Factbook, it is quite possibly the best aspect of Logos because of how quickly it's pulling together resources from your library to help you to dive in to that particular topic. Definitely for topical use. But with Logos 10, they made an improvement to Logos where you can now actually put in the passage that you're studying. You could enter it into Factbook, and now it's going to double up the amount of work that you're having access to. So we could put 2 Peter 2, and these little red ribbons indicate to me, okay, it's going to search for the particular text. So we'll just go follow the apostles and prophets, not false teachers. Okay, fine. So now we're at 2 Peter chapter 1. And now Factbook is pulling together more resources for me. And I want to draw your attention to this section here. It's called Dig Deeper. I'm in a little bit of a fight with the developers because I want this section further up on the Factbook page, because it gives you some really clear options of what you could do in your study on that particular passage out of Factbook. So you can see these different layouts. So there's Bible and journaling, Bible and commentary, passage study, study Bible, and then different guides, a passage guide, a sermon starter guide, an exegetical guide. These are already built into Logos for you that then help you to say, okay, now I know where I'm going with my passage, so I'm going to dive right in by using this. So, speaking of guides and workflows, so that was Factbook. We'll get to guides and workflows. This is one of my favorite ones. This is one that I go to routinely. This is called Passage Guide. And this is where you really get to see the power of Logos at work and pulling together resources for you very, very swiftly. Now, part of this is I've gone into my library and I've prioritized not only my preferred Bible translation, but several commentaries that I always want to have access to because I don't want to go looking for them. So one of my favorite commentary series is the Christ-Centered Exposition Commentary Series. Love that. Because I've prioritized that, anytime I open up Passage Guide, that commentary series will always be at the top. I've also prioritized the Bible Knowledge Commentary Series. Actually, not a series, it's a one-volume set. So those two are always going to be at the top of the list because I've just come to really appreciate those. I like what they do. Notice that if you run your cursor over each one, you get a little window, kind of a preview window. You can then decide to click on it and it opens right up, not to the beginning of the book, but directly to the section that you're wanting to look at. So Luke 19, 45 through 48. Great question. So let's do that. To prioritize your books, you go over to your library, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's a shish kebab menu again. You click on it, and then there's this window here, and you click Prioritize Books. And so these are the books that I've prioritized. And to prioritize a book, you go through your library, you click, drag, and hold, and then it shows up over there. So, how many of you are familiar with Morris Proctor? That name ring a bell? He's the official authorized trainer for Logos. He was not a Logos employee, but Logos really loved him. And sometimes we steal from Morris. his suggestions. So his suggestion would be to prioritize one, maybe two Bible translations, at least one multi-volume commentary set that's going to cover the entirety of everything, at least one single volume commentary, and a couple of different Bible encyclopedias and Bible dictionaries. That way, you know that when Factbook is going to pull a report together, it's going to come from a resource that you trust, that you value, that has been vetted. You don't have to wonder, I don't know what the theological backing of this particular author is. It's all right there for you. So definitely prioritize your books within your library. Again, to do that, just simply open up your library by clicking on it, go to the shish kebab menu, click on prioritize books, and then start clicking and dragging away. At some point, I need to clean this up because I've put way too much in here because I've demonstrated how to do this way too often. So thank you for that. All right, but we'll go back to our passage guide. And again, notice again how quickly Logos is pulling together all of my commentaries. You can also edit your passage guide to do what you want it to do. Now, I'll give you an example. There's a section that means a lot to me, but not to everybody else, and that's okay, no judgment here. I love the ancient literature. I like knowing what Origen had to say. I like knowing what Cyprian had to say. I like knowing what Tertullian had to say. That's not for everybody. That's okay. We want you to use passage guide in a way that makes the most sense to you. So in your passage guide, again, in the right-hand corner, there's a little shish kebab menu. You can click on that and scroll down to edit this guide. So a new tab opens up, and on the big section on the left is everything that's already in your passage guide in the order in which it shows up. I can then move this around. Let's say, okay, I don't want commentaries first. I want it below these important passages. So now it's fourth on the list in my passage guide. If I go back over to my passage guide, back to where I had tabbed before, now I notice that, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's now the fourth section. It happens for you automatically just like that. You can also change the number of commentaries that it shows you at a time. So I default to 10. Again, I'm off the charts OCD. I can't handle seeing that much stuff on my screen. But you can change that to 30, 50, whatever your number is. Or you can also change which books are, or which commentaries are going to be there. So I keep mine selected at all commentaries just because I'm nosy that way. But if you just really want to drill down into specific commentaries, you can do that. So I'm going to put that back where it belongs, there at the top. And I'm going to change that number back to 10. That's where it's supposed to be. On the right-hand side, the smaller menu, if it's in gray, it's already in your passage guide. If it's in black, it's something that you can add to your passage guide along the way. If there's something in your passage guide that you don't like or just aren't going to use, so again, some of you are not going to use the ancient literature, you just simply click the X and now it's gone, and you see it over here on the right-hand side. Now it's in black, ancient literature. I can then add it back in, which I'm going to because, like I said, that stuff matters to me. Anyways, so passage guide is where you're really going to hang out, and particularly as you're preparing sermons, because now it's pulling together multiple resources. So you've got your commentaries, you've got your cross-references, important words. I love that Logos has done this, has included important words, and even to help us out, has decided to add a pronunciation feature. So if you're wanting to tell somebody in Greek to hang on, there you go. Now it's pronouncing it for you so you don't have to guess any longer about what that word is supposed to sound like. Important passages, another fun feature that Logos has built into it. So what important passages is doing, it's like cross-references, but now it's giving you the reason for the cross-references. So it's looking for other passages that are related to what we're studying in Luke chapter 19, and it's pulling together other passages and telling us why. So I've got New Testament use of the Old Testament. There's a cave that's mentioned. There's lexicons that are similar. We're talking about Herod's temple. So all these different ways. But then I can drill down even deeper and say, okay, I only want to see the important passages of a certain type. Right now it says references of all types. I can click on all types, and then a menu pops up and say, okay, I only want to see references that are New Testament use of the Old Testament. And it's going to think for me, And so now that's all that's on my screen. So we've taken everything else out. So if you're one of those pastors that likes to help your people connect the Old Testament to the New Testament, so they recognize there's not a left side of the book and a right side of the book, it's all one book and they talk to each other, then that's a great tool for you to be able to use. If you want to go back and see all types, then you click the menu again and bring up all types. And again, Logos is doing this work for you. Now, let's just stick with New Testament use of the Old Testament. How many hours would you have had to have spent in order to find all of that? Now again, Logos isn't doing the work of interpretation for you. Because some people get concerned, like, well, if I do that, then Logos is doing my sermon. No, it's not. Logos is still saying you, as the teacher, as the preacher, as the pastor, you're still responsible for doing the work of interpretation. What Logos is saying is, look, we're going to help you out on the research end. And we're going to cut down your time considerably and make it way faster, and also something that you can take with you wherever you go. I mean, imagine all the books that I would have to do what Logos just did for me. I mean, the stack would be up here. That's not very portable. Whereas now I take my laptop, or if you're a tablet person, take your iPad, and you can work on it on the plane. You can work on it during the break. You can work on it while somebody's speaking. You're like, I don't know really if I'm interested in what they have to say. I want to work on my sermon instead. It's all right there in front of you, and you look like you're just taking notes, but really you're working on your sermon for Sunday. It's a really great tool. Not at all from experience am I saying that. Yes, sir?
For important passages and important words, does that only come with a certain level of description? Like if there's nothing showing up in that section, is there a 7 that needs to change?
What version of Logos are you on?
10.
You are on 10. Do you know what library you have? Are you bronze, silver, gold? What?
Red?
Red.
Oh, that's what I...
It doesn't show it on gold.
Really? It should.
Yeah.
Is it in your passage guide? Like, did you?
I've got your passage open. I've got passage guide, and it just describes it. There's no actual passages. There's no actual words. But we could do it later on.
Okay. Yeah, let's look into that. That's weird though. We'll keep scrolling our way through. Atlas. Okay. I've confessed to you I'm a church history nerd. I'm also a bit of a geography nerd. And when I was a preaching pastor, particularly at the beginning of a book series, I would always include a map. Because it's important to me that my people realize, yes, this is an ancient book, but this is not an ancient book written about a fantasy world. These are real locations. And so, oh, sorry, that's a web required feature. Huh. I guess there's no Wi-Fi in this room. Yes, there is. Liar.
There's no connection.
It kicks you out because there's too many people on it, I think.
Okay, everybody stop looking at Facebook.
I don't think they actually have internet. You can connect to the Wi-Fi. I don't think they actually have their internet connection.
The Wi-Fi network hope guests could not be joined.
They just need to keep resetting the router because there's 800 people on their phones and tablets and laptops.
Boy, I really had that fixed before the next big session because I got a presentation I'm supposed to do. So, everybody,
Give you a password to their private one, probably.
thank you. You're a good man. I like that. You created solutions. Okay, so, well, believe me, there is an Atlas feature, and I would always include a map because, again, I wanted my people to recognize we're talking about real places. You could still go there today. It's going to look a little bit different than when it was written about, but you can still go there. It's important to me that my people were able to really kind of, in their minds, put their feet on the ground and have some kind of orientation like, wow, we really are talking about real history, and not just real history by itself, but God's supernatural, intentional involvement in history. Now, am I overstating the purpose of maps? Probably, but it was important to me for my people to have that information. Next big section, biblical people or biblical things. These are going to go back to different fact book reports. So if there are things or people that are mentioned in the passage that you're looking at. So remember, we're looking at Luke 19, 45 through 48. Whatever's in there that is a person, a place, or a thing, Logos identifies that and immediately sets up a fact book report where I can then dive deeper into that. So there's a merchant, that's mentioned, a Jewish temple, Herod's temple, a den. Like, these are all the things that Logos is now pulling together for me, and right away. Again, the hours of savings, and you know you're getting it from trusted resources. Because what are we not doing? We're not Googling our biblical and theological information any longer because we don't need to because we have Logos. Biblical places, parallel passages, different outlines, figurative language, cultural concepts, on and on this goes. Now I'm going to scroll down and get to this. Okay, there's no results for this one, and that's okay. There's a section here called Logos Sermons, and this is where you have to put your discernment hat on. As good as Logos is, it is limited. So what happens with Logos sermons is somebody has preached a passage that is the same as your passage. They have the option of uploading it to Logos sermons. And now it becomes a searchable resource. Now again, Logos is good, but we have our limits. We can't look at every single sermon to determine theological accuracy or if it's going to match up with your theological tradition. So again, you got to put your discernment hat on. Now somebody asked me one time, well, what if you find a sermon that is in error? I'm like, I don't know that that's a game that we really want to play. Like, take baptism. Multiple views on that. Some of us would hold to some really strong views that might view others as being erroneous. Logos isn't going to do that. He's like, okay. So he relented. He goes, well, how about this? And I thought, oh, I can't wait to hear what's going to come out of your mouth right now. He said, what if you find a sermon on Logos sermons that is exalting the worship of Satan? Like, okay, really extreme example. In that case, yeah, reach out to somebody, let us know. I'm sure we could probably get that one removed. So all that being said, use your discernment. It can be a helpful resource, just to kind of see maybe how they outlined it, or maybe just guys that you enjoy hearing. But anyway, enough about that. Different thematic outlines. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Because I told you that everything that's in blue in Logos is clickable. These are actually clickable, it just doesn't show it immediately. Anytime you see these little arrows, it's clickable and it opens up. And so here I have a thematic outline. It's a thin one that talks about abolition. Or here's a thematic outline based on emotions. So if there's now this is hard for me to say. So the seminary that I attended, the very first chapel session I ever went to at this seminary, the president of the seminary got up and he said very authoritatively that there's two kinds of preaching, expository and bad. And I've held to that for a long time. Over time, I've kind of moderated that thought. I think there can be a place for a thematic sermon, for topical sermons. So if you're looking to do a thematic message based on Luke 19, now Logos is going to help you to provide a thin outline for you to work with. Again, you notice how thin that this was. This is not something where you can just get up 5 seconds before your sermon and be ready to rock and roll. You're going to have to work it a little bit, but it's helping you to kind of narrow down where you'd want to go in that conversation or in that message about emotions as coming out from Luke 19. Different topics that are mentioned, different illustrations that you have access to, media resources, and on it goes. And that's just passage guide. That's probably where you would hang out the most if you're putting together a sermon or a Bible study, would be in passage guide. It's going to give you the most access to different tools. Now, having said that, I'll get to my second favorite guide. This is the Bible Word Study Guide. And I love this because I've paid thousands of dollars for Hebrew and Greek education and have very little memory of what I paid those thousands of dollars. I have a very distinct memory of writing the check. But beyond that, it's a little bit hazy for me. So now Logos is going to help me recover some of my Greek and Hebrew education. Or if you've never had Greek and Hebrew, now it's going to give you access to the original languages so that you're able to work with the original languages and know what you're doing. Because as good as our English translations are, they are just that. They're translations. So being able to go back to the original word. So in the search bar, I've typed in the English word truth. Now you notice there is a keyboard in the search bar. You can decide if you want to use the word in your default language, which for most of us would be English, or if you remember the keystrokes to type it into Greek or into Hebrew, you can do that. my encouragement would be to stick with the default language, stick with English, because that way you get to see both the Hebrew and the Greek. So we'll go with this word here. This is truth. I did that on purpose. I have 6 children. All their names start with the letter E. That's either really helpful or really annoying. You decide. My 6th child and my 3rd son, his name is Emmet, which is this Hebrew word here, meaning truth. And what's cool about this is you can click on each one of these bands in this circle, and it's going to give you the Hebrew word itself. It's going to give you the English transliteration. And then these numbers here are super cool that Logos is doing this for you. What it's telling you is that in our English Bibles, 45 times is a Hebrew word translated as truth in English for us. And of those 45 instances, 32 of them are this Hebrew word, truth. But not only is it telling me what the numbers are, it's going to show me exactly where in my Bible that particular word is going to pop up. It becomes a super helpful tool when you're wanting to, maybe preach a thematic message on truth. Now you've got the words to work with. And you can tell that each one has a thin definition to go alongside of it. I can close that particular band, open up the next one. This is the Hebrew word emunah. Okay, so that's used 5 times. Interesting. So 32 times it's emet, 5 times it's emunah. Okay, now again, Logos isn't going to do the work for you to interpret why those are different. Again, you see where Logos says, okay, at some point we can't do this, like you're going to have to do the work. It's pulling the research together for you, and then you have to wrestle with it in your prayer and in your study. That's the Hebrew version. Similar in Greek, not quite as exciting because essentially they're all derivatives of the Greek word aletheia, with one exception here. This word pneumatikos. And Logos has decided to assign it. You can tell that it means spiritual, but it's assigning it to this idea of truth. Again, Logos isn't telling you why that's the case. It's asking you to do the work, but it's putting the information in front of you for you to wrestle with. You'll notice that for both the Hebrew and the Greek, these are not Geiger counters. Instead, it's tracking the frequency of use of the English word that's being used. Now, you do with this what you want. I just think it's interesting that there are 2 occurrences of the Hebrew word truth, or the English word truth, in our English Bibles, and then it just kind of disappears. And doesn't come up again until 1 Kings. I just think it's really interesting. Now, am I going to preach a whole message on that? Probably not. I just think it's really cool that that's how deep Logos is going to help you to have information. Is that the most soul transforming piece of information you have? No, but it is showing you how deep Logos goes into pulling information together for you to have.
And what do the colors mean?
It's just indicating frequency.
No, like in the pie chart.
Oh, it's just that's a great question. Honestly, I don't know. I should probably figure that out. I've been doing this job for a year. You're the first person that ever asked that question.
I don't feel bad then.
No. Does anybody in the room have a good answer for that? Great, I'm going to have to reach out to somebody.
Hot and cold?
Sure. We'll just make it up. Somebody put it on the Logos blog. That's what it means. Hot or cold. The other thing that Logos has done is built in this idea of sense. What's the best understanding of the word? Are we talking about truth as a quality or truth as a statement? And again, it's in blue so I can click on it. And when I do, Logos puts together this little map for me to help me to understand where is this word truth as a statement? Where is it nestled as far as the kind of sense that I can or should read into what's happening there? So that's biblical sense, which is part of the Bible Word Study Guide.
So how did you get there?
So in the Bible Word Study Guide, keep on scrolling, and then this idea of sense.
Okay. It's grayed out for me, so it must be like a first.
Man, we're going to have to look at your Logos to figure out what in the world's going on.
Yeah.
And one more guide, because I think this crowd will appreciate this one. This was awesome. Oh my goodness. You want to talk about saving a lot of time and energy for you. This is called the Exegetical Guide. And what Logos is doing It is going word by word through your passage and is pulling together all the information you need to understand the exegesis of each of those words. So it's giving you the English translation, the transliteration, the Greek links to lexicons for every single word and whatever passage you put in there. So if you put in a really long passage, I don't know if it's really long, but this is James 2:14 through 26. That means Logos is going through all 12 verses in that passage and looking at every single word. So if you like doing good exegesis, let me rephrase that. Since you like doing good exegesis, again, imagine the amount of time that this just saved you from having to go dig it up and flip through the pages of your books in order to go find it. Now it's here in front of you at your fingertips in less than a second. So I know I'm scrolling kind of fast. It's on purpose just to show you it is truly going through every single word in the passage. So make good use out of this. All right, questions so far, so I can take a drink of water and wet my whistle. I'm also being conscious of the time. Yes, sir?
Maybe on a slightly different path of the overall where you're going here, but do you recommend using Logos simply online or downloading into your laptop or both? Or
So there's several ways that you can do it. So when you buy Logos, I do want to clear this up. You're buying a license and not a subscription. So that means when you buy a license, it's yours until you die. I was joking earlier with folks, like you can leave it in your will to your kids. It's yours. And when you download it, when you buy it, you have several options. You can use it as a web-based app. So my oldest son, he's a freshman in college, doesn't have a computer because his parents are broke. So he's using the computer lab at school. I was able to get him, it's kind of like a trade-off, like, hey, I can't buy you a computer, but I can buy you Logos at a discounted cost. Since he's going to a Christian school, kind of important. And so he goes to computer lab, he signs in as himself, and he uses the web-based app, which is great for him for what he needs to do. The downside to that is you're not able to customize it. So like the edit your passage guide, you can't do that from the web-based app. If you were to download it to your device, say your laptop or your desktop, there's two different ways that you could download it. You could download it as a limited install, so it's going to send in the big bones, maybe not all of the bones. Or you can do a full install where it's going to put every single one of your resources that are there. If you're looking for numbers like how much space to do a full install, you're looking at 30 gigabytes that would need to be available on your computer to download the whole thing. And I'll tell you the situation. So I do a limited install because where I live, I know I have consistent Wi-Fi. And so I want to kind of keep some space free on my computer. But as I access different resources, so let's say I access this book that I haven't accessed before. Once I access it, now it's downloaded there, so I don't have to go back and do it every single time. Where I would download the whole thing, so for 10 years, I told you my wife and I, we served for this organization that sent pastors to rural churches and rural communities. We lived along 18 miles of paved road. That's an important adjective, paved, because the only other intersecting roads were gravel logging roads. And we were 19 miles from a grocery store, gas station, post office. Along those 18 miles, there was 400 people, literally more cows than people that lived out there. We lived at mile marker 9. Cell signal stopped at mile marker 5, so 4 miles up the road. So there was no cell signal. The internet access that we had was satellite internet. Anybody ever use satellite internet?
It's blazing fast.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. And they tell you like after a certain time, oh, this amount of download speeds available to you. Yeah, it's at 3 in the morning. So in that setting, I would have downloaded everything because I knew that my Wi-Fi was just not going to be reliable. Where I live now, it's a little bit better. I've got it in my house. I've got it in my office. Really kind of comes down to what makes the most sense for you based on your setting. So I gave you 3 options to what was started out as a simple question that I probably made way more complicated than necessary. but I'm a dad, that's my job. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you said something about Google. What I find in Logos, I'm trying to search something like an information very quickly, and I'm geared towards Google every time, because in Logos you don't actually, or I'm not aware of that. You don't actually have a all-in-one search engine. So if you want, I don't know. Maybe I'm not using correctly, or I don't know. So
Are you
I'm
using Factbook?
Yeah. Yes.
And you're not finding what you're looking for?
Yeah, because I want to look quickly, like a Bible, and I need to go and scroll on the Bible, or I want a commentary, and then I need to, maybe I'm not aware of if you have an all-in-one engine, like with
Yes.
blazing fast, so that, and yeah.
So let's go to search.
Okay.
So I've opened the search bar, and I have multiple options up here of where I would want Logos to search. My Bible, books, Factbook, media, docs, or I can click all search.
Okay.
And so that means that Logos is going to search everything. It's going to search Factbook, it's going to search my Bibles, it's going to search my commentaries, it's going to search different media for whatever it is that I might be looking for. So that might be useful.
If you want, like this, in this instance, search I don't know, 2 Corinthians 7:5, I don't know. Okay.
So 2 Corinthians 7:5, I did the all search. So this is showing me some good lexicon stuff, different things in Factbook, my Bible, different documents, passage guide, different other books, other commentaries that are mentioning 2 Corinthians 7:5.
Yeah, I would say it is good, but like when you're not very used to the program, it tends to be very hard to find the information.
Sure. We recognize that there is a learning curve to it.
Along this similar line, one of my personal conundrums, project anything of my issues on you, but I grew up under,
I'm also a counselor, so I'm used to that. So,
I grew up under a King James.
okay.
My dad, and then I went to Bible college with an NIV, and as a pastor I've gone to ESV. And so those are three very different. When you're looking for a specific verse, you know what the verse is in your head. You go, okay, well, in the sense of you know the wording of the verse, but
Right.
you don't know which version it's in.
Sure.
And so you've chosen ESV, NIV, New King James, for example, as your Bibles. So when you begin to type a verse, this is how it's happened with me. Is I'm trying to find a guy. I know this. I don't know the chapter and verse per se, but I know this is crazy. It's not like if I just go to ESV, just online, I'm using ESV. Too much of what I know is King James or NIV, or maybe it's a New American that
Sure.
I type it in and my ESV says, no comprendo. And I'm like, come on, right? So you fight, and then you go to Google, you type in the phrase
And
you're
you'll
thinking,
find
and
it,
it shows
yeah.
up New King, shows up, and that's why I don't know where that, right? Like you fight.
Right.
And you're fighting with your own mind. So in this way, when you're, yeah, seriously, you get angry with yourself. So in this way, if you've chosen Bible translations, and you start to type in the verse itself, the words in and of themselves, it'll bring you to, will it bring you to the translation in which you're fighting with? You know what I'm saying?
So, okay. I want
Instead of Jesus wept, right?
I'm gonna see if I can restate your question just to make sure I'm understanding it.
Yeah.
And so if I miss something, feel free to correct me. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Again, I'm a counselor. I'm used to having to reinterpret what people said. So, you have experience with a variety of translations. You know the verse, but you can't remember, okay, wait, is that from King James? Is that from ESV? Is that from NIV? And you're searching for it in Logos in order to find, okay, wait, where exactly is that? And what's the exact way that it's phrased in a particular translation?
Right.
So I'm understanding that part correctly. So here's what I would do in that instance. So is I would take the key words. So let's say like grace and truth, right? Actually, let's make it even more fun. Both terms.
And spell check would be auto spell, like if you're spelling it wrong, you go, you know,
You are not the first person to ask for that, and I'm on the list as well.
rice instead of grace, whatever, right? No, things change, right?
So I've put grace and truth in there, and again, this is going to be in the ESV. But also, I could do like a fuzzy search. Oh, of course, right now it's going to act like that. If you're looking for a fuzzy search, what that means that Logos is doing is, okay, let's find some words that are kind of, sort of in the same vein as grace and truth, but maybe aren't exactly that. And maybe that kind of helps to narrow down like, oh, that's where I should have gone. That's right, I remembered it in this way. The other tool that you could use, and I use this one quite a bit because it's a whole lot easier than having 7 different Bibles on my desk, is the text comparison. I love doing this. Also, just from a point of view of being able to look at different translations, because again, as good as our English translations are, they are just that, translations. God's word is infallible, our translations are not, so we have to be willing to acknowledge that. And I love the fact that Logos is calculating the difference between each of the translations. So again, it's key to the ESV because it's my preferred translation. And like in this case, it's telling me there's a 37% difference between the NIV and the ESV. Now again, Logos isn't making any kind of categorical claims about what, but you might hear 37%, oh, it's 37% wrong. Well, maybe not. It might just be a small tweak in a word. So the ESV says now when, whereas the NIV says now while. All right, is that going to affect anybody's doctrine? No. Okay, it's just a translation issue, but being able to see that and having it in front of you and having it that quickly.
How did you get to the fuzzy search? You tried. Well, but how did you even?
Yeah, so you go to search, and then
Search, type in
in this case,
both
what did I do? Oops, didn't like that. Grace and truth. Ooh, that was the wrong place to put it. Too many moving parts, y'all. Grace and truth, search. And then I've got passages, aligned, grid. Oh, man. That was weird. Huh. Yes, I know it quit unexpectedly.
If you were
Yes, I
online-
am going to send a
if you were online,
report.
You could report it, but you can't, so.
Oh, now I have to do this all over again. Oh, no, we got the spinning beach ball of death.
It's looking for.
Nobody likes that. All right, one more time. Grace, truth, search. And this is where it pops. Oh, let me change the scaling on that. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Passages, align, grid, analysis, and then fuzzy here at on the right-hand side.
Mine did not bring that up.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure why. I see all the basic on the left, but I don't have that second window on the right that picks up version.
Interesting.
Your grace and truth, the word is in the same line. It says, no, it's the same line.
Well,
You did a
what?
separate search for the word.
So what I did, this is the cool thing about Logos going forward, is in the old days, you had to memorize all of these search operators. And if you messed up, if you put the colon in the wrong place, or if you didn't include the tilde, like it jacked up your search. And now the templates are built in. And so I didn't type in grace and truth in this search bar here. I used the template, and then it put the correct phrasing, search phrasing, into that box for me. Now, if you want to, if you're still old school and you like typing in the old search operators, knock yourself out. It'll still respond to it, but I just don't know why you would do that to yourself. Delete that information, fill it with something else, rather than use it that way. Cool. All right. A couple other, one more guide to show you. This is the counseling guide. This came out with Logos 9, starting at silver and higher, and it continues on in Logos 10 at silver and higher, where you can put virtually any counseling topic, and Logos is going to pull together resources for you to help you to better understand that particular counseling topic. So I've typed depression in there. I've not hit enter. And again, if I let Logos think for a second or two, it's going to give me a few suggestions of maybe where I would want to go in my study on, am I talking about depression, depression in marriage, bipolar disorder, and this is how you know that Logos was programmed in the Pacific Northwest, because seasonal affective disorder is a real thing where I live. So, because when you're gray 9.5 months out of the year, that happens a lot. But we'll keep it simple for now. We'll just go with depression. And right away, Logos is now pulling together information from my library that helps me to better understand this particular counseling topic. And it's also giving me access to other related counseling topics. So discouragement, dissociation, suicide, and more. And this is a fun, helpful tool. For some of you, this may not mean everything, but on the counseling topic, so you can see up here at the top, counseling topic is the big category that's being introduced. Within that section, you can click on this one. This is going to be a chapter from the Quick Reference Guide to Biblical Counseling. I'm going to scroll through it kind of quick, but on purpose. So some portraits, so some very short case studies, definitions and key thoughts, different types of depression, causes, symptoms, and then you get to hear this assessment interview. Now, this is where I take my Logos hat off and put my counselor hat on. These questions are really, really good questions. But please, for the love of all that is good and holy, if somebody is coming to you and saying, hey, I think I feel depressed, please do not lead off with these questions. Okay, it's a great question. Don't lead off with it. Hey, pastor, feeling a little depressed. Okay, well, if 10 is extreme sadness and 1's feeling well, where are you at today? Don't lead off with that. Good question, don't lead off with it. Instead, if you're going to lead off, the general questions. How long have you felt depressed? What's happening in your life? Okay, those are better, those are softer, those are gentler. But notice that for each one, there are these gray boxes and these grayed out yellow Post-it note looking things. You can start typing in information and Logos will store that for you. So if you're after that conversation, I don't recommend doing it while the person's like directly in front of you. But you can go back, fill that information in, so the next time you know that you're going to have a conversation with that person, you can revisit your notes about what you left the last time, where that conversation went. So if I just start typing something, if 10's extreme sadness and 1's feeling well, where are you at today? Hey, I'm at an, no, I'm not an 8. I'm at a 3, feeling pretty okay. I miss my family. And notice that as soon as I start typing, that grayed out Post-it note now becomes a vibrant yellow one, which means now I can save it in my notes going forward. You have to go back and recategorize the notes to just make sure you know, okay, hey, we were talking with Billy Bob about this conversation. But just know that's a fun feature that's in there, built into what Logos is doing. So that's the counseling guide. Yes, sir?
So if I bought Logo 6 in 2015, and it's gold,
Okay.
and I've updated to 10, I won't get that counseling guide likely.
Correct, because it starts at silver and higher.
Right, but if I have gold, if I bought gold in 2016,
Well, it starts at Logos 9, silver and higher. So the Logos 6 gold wouldn't have it because it didn't come out until Logos 9. But if you got Logos 10, silver and higher, it would have the counseling guide in it. So it'd just be a matter of upgrading you from Logos 6 gold to Logos 10 silver, and you would have it.
So does silver get you all the features for Logos?
Gold gets you all the features for Logos. And here's I kind of say this one almost sort of for last, but this is just tremendous. So this is what Logos did for version 10. Now, if you're like me, one of the reasons why you hesitated at first about Logos is you're like, you know what? I've been doing ministry for a while. I have amassed quite the library. If I buy Logos, what in the world am I supposed to do with all my physical books? And that was a barrier. I'll confess, I was one of those guys. I'm like, I don't know if I really need it. I got all these cool books here. And Logos said, okay, enough. We've got the solution for you. So you can download the mobile app. And on the mobile app is a print library ISBN scanner. So you can take your physical books that you own off your bookshelf. And there's a little camera feature built into the app that will scan the ISBN number of that book. As long as that book exists within Logos, it gets added to your print library. So now Logos is going to catalog your print library for you.
So if I got like a whole expositor's commentary set,
Yes.
I can scan each one of those that will be in my logo?
So you don't get the full digital version, but Logos will search the full digital version and will give you a preview window and say, okay, you need to go to page 182 in your expository commentary, volume 7.
Well, it's better than nothing.
Right. Because, well, think about it. If we gave you the full digital version, we would be sued by every publisher by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Because what would keep somebody unscrupulous from running through like their local Christian bookstore and then scanning every single book? Like, ha ha! So we're trying to not tick off the publishers. But now so if you're like me, you've underlined hundreds of books. Like, I know I've read that somewhere. And maybe, in most cases, I might be able to narrow it down to the author, but some of the authors that I think of have written, 10, 20 books. Okay, well, where did David Powlison say that thing?
So what you're saying is, it will become part of your search engine and it'll be searchable, but then you gotta go get your book off the shelf.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. So, for example, I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago in North Carolina. Nathan Knight wrote this book, Planting by Pastoring. They were handing them out for free. It's a book that exists within the Logos catalog. So now it's on my bookshelf at home. If I'm wanting to search something about church planting, now Logos will produce results from my print library and say, oh, you need to go to this page in your physical book, and boom, there it is. So again, talk about the hours of time that you just saved yourself searching your physical books and reading underlines or trying to read the underlines and these bizarre notes you left for yourself that were really important at the time you read it, and then your handwriting changed and now you can't read your own handwriting. Now Logos is saying, okay, we got you covered. So super cool feature. It's a new feature in Logos 10 that starts at gold and higher, being able to scan the ISBN numbers for your books. The caveats are it has to be a book that already exists in Logos, and we are approaching 200,000 titles. I think the last number I saw was like 187,125. So there's a better than good chance if it's by a major publisher, better than good chance we have it. And also, you don't get the full digital version, so don't throw away your print books. So don't do that. Or maybe just buy them again in Logos. Excuse me. So super fun feature that Logos decided to add for that. Take advantage of the time savings that come with that. Cool. Other
Question related to I think this question came up earlier, similar. So I've upgraded to a Logos 10 library, but
Okay.
originally bought it when it was before Logos 7, I think it was 4 maybe.
Okay.
So I've upgraded over the time,
Right.
or whatever, but I don't have the counseling guide in mind. Is that because I haven't upgraded to a Logos 10 library, even though I have all the Logos 10 features?
So counseling guide starts with the silver feature set.
I had silver and have just continued with, so it's silver, as far as I know.
I may have to look you up to figure out exactly what you did. Because I know I'm being redundant, it's not on purpose, not to be difficult, but counseling guide starts at silver and higher, and 9 and 10. So if you don't have it, then we have to look into your library and figure out what it is that is going on.
I think it's the same as mine, where I bought Gold in 2015, but my library hasn't, but even though the features have increased, my library is still the original library.
Okay.
Which I get, right? As
Right.
Logos increases, then I gotta pay for that at some point.
Right.
I gotta write the check to get that counseling guide.
Right.
In addition to writing the check to upgrade to Logos 10.
I wait until they give it to free.
And just for fun, so again, I have 6 kids, 2 boys, 3 girls, and a little boy. My oldest 2 daughters are 13 and 11. And they attend a small classical Christian school. So Bible study is part of their curriculum. And they know what Daddy has. They know Daddy's got Logos. And they're fascinated by one particular feature. So now they're reading their Bibles with a keen eye for specific details. Now, this is not heart-transforming work, but it's keeping their minds occupied in God's Word, where they're looking for random weights and measures that are expressed in Scripture and trying to wrap their heads around what does that actually mean. So they'll say, Daddy, can we use your Logos real quick? I just love showing this. Now, is this where the power of Logos is? No, but it is showing you like how deep they go into making sure that you've got all the information you could possibly need. So,
What tab is that under, the weights and measures?
go under Tools. So we'll take Noah's Ark. It's 300 cubits. How long is a cubit? By memory, I know that a cubit is 18 inches. Once we get beyond 10, my math is going to fail me. And so Logos is doing the work for you. 300 cubits is roughly 475 feet, or 12 city buses, 10 humpback whales, 7 semi-trucks, 3 Boeing 757s. Now, why we're comparing things to a British landmark, I still haven't really wrapped my head around, but it's about half a Tower Bridge. So this summer, my big boys with their school went on a trip to England, Scotland, Wales, and then northern France. And because it's 2023, like they could send pictures like immediately. And so they sent me this picture of the two of them standing on the Tower Bridge. And my default response was, that is roughly the length, halfway through is roughly the length of Noah's Ark. And they were just not impressed with their father's trivia. And I'm like, well, but it's true, that made for a fun text exchange between those two guys on that conversation. So again, just a fun tool that's built into Logos that helps you. And just one more, I think I got time for one more, yeah. I love this one. This is the Bible Books Explorer. This image, I feel like should be printed out and framed and put in everybody's house. Because what you're seeing here is all the different ways that our Bible talks to, interacts with, depends on, and relies on the rest of our Bibles. So it's a graphic representation of that. So these are citations, quotations, allusions, and echoes. And within that, I can hover over each one of the books. So I can hover over Hebrews and see all the places that Hebrews is pulling from the Old Testament. I can then click on Hebrews, and it's going to tell me exactly which verses from the Old Testament are being quoted or alluded to in Hebrews. It also works backwards too, backwards, the other direction. I can hover over Psalms to see all the places in the New Testament where Psalms is being quoted. Click on it, and then it will tell me where in the New Testament is quoting from different Psalms. Love that particular feature. That's the intertext look at it. Another fun way to look at this is by book. So many moons ago, a guy by the name of Robert Longacres, who clearly had way too much time on his hand and not enough children, decided to go through the entirety of the text of Scripture and then categorize everything in Scripture into 4 big categories: narrative, procedural, behavioral, or expository. So this is just a good graphic look at the content of Scripture. So unsurprisingly, Genesis is primarily narrative. And then we shouldn't be surprised that when we look at Romans, it's almost all expository. Again, a fun way to look at Scripture. You can click on each one of them and you get like a small little report on each of them that names the author, the language, key people, key places, different composition dates. Again, notice Logos is just giving you the information. It's not trying to settle for you when exactly. We recognize there's debates about when these letters were written. So it's just giving you the information and allowing you to kind of do the heavy lifting and the work on what all that means. And if you're into statistics, it produces that for you. So 16 chapters, 430 verses, 7,055 words, on and on it goes. So again, Logos is going super deep to help you to have as much information about a passage, about a topic, all designed so that you are freed up. Again, let's get back to the big point. If your study time can be much more efficient, that frees you up to then do the work of shepherding and care. And in the end, what our people need, and particularly during and coming out of COVID, what did we find? Our people need shepherding and they need care. They don't need a scholar in residence. There's a time and a place for that. But what they need and what they've what you've been called to is to be a shepherd and to provide care. So if we can help your preparation time be used much more efficiently, that frees you up to be with your people, and that's where you're going to really delight in your ministry. So I've got like 2 minutes left, I think. So questions, concerns, violent opposition, complaints? Yes, sir.
Do you have any plans to add other languages besides English for Bibles?
Okay, so a couple things about that. We do have packages available in English, Spanish, French, Korean, Chinese, but we also,
Romanian.
okay, so let's have some fun. Who wants?
We are a bunch of friends that use Logos.
Okay.
We thought about Romanian, so we found you.
So unfortunately, because we have no Wi-Fi in here, so I've opened up my Bible in this tab, and this little icon right here is a translate feature, and you can take any resource in your library and translate it into any one of 100 different languages, 100 plus, which I suspect Romanian would be among that list. Unfortunately, I can't see it right now because it does require internet to do that. Now, this will be the place where I have to acknowledge, okay, yes, we do use Google. So for the translation feature, that was hard. For the translation, we use either Google Translate or DeepL. It kind of depends on which language is being used, but there is a translate feature, and that's true for your Bible or any other resource. So if you want to translate something that Spurgeon said into Romanian, you have the ability to do that now.
Yeah, well,
I was
yeah.
more curious about the version of the Bible as we have it in the printed Bible.
Oh, of adding,
Especially when
Romanian
we-
Bible.
Especially when we cross
Because we
out
don't have
some
that, so
in Logos.
we need to stick with the English version. So it's,
Oh, wow.
It's kind of.
So that I'm about the Bible version.
okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I'm sorry about taking you down a rabbit trail there. I don't know, but I will be glad to reach out and ask because that would seem to be kind of an important item to include. Yeah, particularly as the church continues to thrive and blossom in Romania. Thank you, brothers, for what you're doing. Yeah, I'll reach out to somebody and say, hey, what does it take to do this? I don't know offhand, but.
How can we find you to keep your account for?
So I do have a. Wow! Oh man! Okay, don't screw that one up. I have cards up here. You're welcome to reach out, call, text, email, carrier pigeon, whatever you have to do. Okay, one person appreciate my carrier pigeon joke. Thank you.
Great session, thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Cool. So I want to be good with your time. So there's like a 15-minute break before the big action starts?
Thank you very much.
You bet, guys. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
Can you confirm just by looking then at the About info? So I have a pre-Logos 7 library bought,
Okay.
13 years ago, I think.
So this says that you have all the Logos
So I have
features.
all the features. I recently paid to upgrade that, but then it says get a Logos 10 library.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if it was included, and what I originally purchased was the silver. So,
Okay.
But maybe when it's upgraded, it's not automatically upgraded.
When
to
was the
silver.
when's the last time that you signed out of Logos and then signed back in?
I haven't signed out in a while.
Okay, that might be it
But
too.
I quit it and restarted again. But how do you sign out then?
Just okay. So close.
It's not going to be in the About.